Zac Barnes was born on May 22, 1998 in Medford, New South Wales, Australia. His parents found love early in their younger years. Besides Zac, they had 3 more children: Jared and Cody, who were both older than Zac, and Liam, who was 2 years younger. Medford is a suburb of Maitland and has about 5,000 residents, so it's a small community where people know each other. The town is located about 150 kilometers from Sydney and a 30-minute car ride from the Hunter River, the river that flows into the Tasmanian Sea in eastern Australia. The Tasmanian Sea is the body of water between Australia and New Zealand. Zac was a mama's boy and he followed her wherever she went. At some point, his father unfortunately got involved with heroin, which broke up the family. He lost his first love, and Zac's mom Karen took the kids and moved them out of the house, away from this volatile situation. But throughout the ordeal, Karen's connection to her husband was still strong, so she stayed in touch and tried to help him. Zac, on the other hand, didn't want anything to do with him and cut him out of his life. When Zac was about 7 years old, Karen met a new man named Mick. Their friendship soon blossomed into love connection over time. Mick became Zac's father figure, especially because he was strong and protective. The boy admired him for that and strived to be just like him. Zac always stood up for weaker individuals against those that were picking on them. 4 children turned into 6 because Karen and Mick had 2 more daughters together, Michaela and Mia. They both looked up to their brother Zac. Zac was an attractive young man, and he was getting a lot of attention from girls at school. But as opposed to many others, he knew just how to handle that, and he didn't shy away from talking to girls. His confidence and his extroversion showed in his hobbies and also his everyday life. He became a good rugby player, loved the beach and surfing, and everyone liked him because he was charismatic and a good person. When it comes to alcohol laws, the Australian ones are similar to those in Germany, so most teenagers get in contact with alcohol even before their 16th birthday, and the same was the case for Zac. At some point, the relaxed summer get-togethers that usually ended up by 10 p.m. turned into wild partying that exceeded the midnight hours by far. When he turned 17, he was finishing school and started a job as a mason, just like his brother Cody. This meant that he was young when he started making his own money. His mother said that he liked to party, so she rarely saw him on weekends. He usually met with friends right after work on Fridays and didn't come back home until Sunday afternoon. She always told him to spend the night at a friend's house rather than drive home intoxicated. She was nervous that something might happen to him on the road. And until the day that we are about to talk about, he always adhered the well-intentioned rules of his mother and got back to the house on Sunday. On Friday, November 11, 2016, Zac overslept for work and his mom wanted to know if she should drop him off. He accepted her offer and only put a little bit of cash in his pocket. He left the wallet and his license at the house, and also didn't have a cell phone on him. It had gotten damaged a few weeks prior. His workday went as usual, and once lunchtime came around, him and his colleagues went to a pub to eat there. He enjoyed a beer with his meal, which is apparently the reason why he ended his workday early. His colleagues later stated that he had mentioned that he didn't want to work while tipsy. He asked one of his co-workers if they could drop him off to a friend who lived in Maitland. The co-worker agreed, so after lunch they drove him to his friend's house. From that point forward, the story becomes a bit blurry, as nobody seems to know what happened after that. But it appears that Zac did in fact make it to his friend's house, because he was spotted close to the residence in eastern Maitland. His brother also stated that he continued to be active on Snapchat and posted pictures on Saturday night, November 12, 2016. This is the first big question mark. According to Zac's mother, he didn't have a cell phone at the time, since it supposedly broke a few weeks ago. How come that he was able to be active on Snapchat then, without a cell phone? As mentioned in the introduction, Zac usually returned back home on Sundays, but on November 13th he never showed up. Around 6 p.m. the family grew concerned, so they contacted his friends in Maitland. However, they only provided information that the family was already aware of. namely that he was spotted on Saturday night in the northeastern part of Maitland. Cody asked one of Zac's friends, her name was Bree, if she could take a drive over to Maitland to the friend's house to check on Zac. Why Bree was dragged into the situation is a mystery to me, but it appears that she was the last person to be in contact with Zac, because she received a message on Sunday at 1 p.m. that simply read, "Dead." She asked him if everything was okay, and he answered, "Shit, no." That was also the last message he sent her, and there was no further communication between the two. When Bree got to the house in Maitland, Zac was there, but he seemed different than usual. He was scared, almost paranoid. He only briefly opened the curtains, eyed Bree, let her in, and quickly drew the curtain again. Bree wanted to convince him to come home with her, but he responded in an aggressive manner, saying things like, "If I get in the car with you, I will bite your face off." But after spending some time on convincing Zac, and with the help of his friends, he finally got in the car, together with two of his friends that had also spent the night there. But he only wanted a ride to Thornton Station, where he was planning to catch a train. According to his friends, Zac had acted like his normal self when he got up that morning, but for some reason his mood and his state of mind got worse and worse throughout the course of the day. So they got in the car and left a short time later, and everything seemed normal. Zac was calm, until he suddenly got very nervous and demanded that his friends shall stop the car immediately. Bree adhered to this request and stopped abruptly. Zac opened the door, jumped off and ran off. And that was the last time anyone ever saw him. No call, no letters, no sightings, nothing. Just gone. Gone in the wind. When Bree stopped the car, they were close to Houseman Drive and Trip Close. Zac either ran towards a stone quarry or towards a rural area covered in brush, ending in a high wall with a west swamp located right on the other side. In the other two directions, there were residential areas where someone most likely would have noticed him. Since that day, the area, or so-called crime scene, has been searched countless times. Even the waterways were searched thoroughly, but nothing was found. However, I should mention that the swamp area is very large, and the waters in it are very deep. In addition, the quarry was never examined with excavators, so the body might be buried under the weight of the stones. Theories. Considering the fact that there are only two possible theories, let's start with the theory that I find most unlikely. He ran away. If this theory were correct, then you would have to assume that Zac had a mental breakdown. What would speak for that is the sudden change in his mood on the day of his disappearance, which his friends also mentioned. These mental issues could have stemmed from possible drug use, and not from a regular issue, which his mother also confirmed. She said that he had never psychological problems on a regular basis. But what the investigations uncovered was that Zac played online poker. Internet detectives and traditional media outlets came up with the theory that he fell into debt with the wrong people, and that Bree only checked on him that Sunday because she was in cahoots with the loan sharks and wanted to put pressure on Zac, or maybe even collect the money. If this was true, then Bree's concern would not have been genuine and would leave a bitter aftertaste. Besides this speculation, there's also the theory that Zac lost his job on Friday and was afraid to come home and tell his family, which would explain a sudden mood swing on Sunday when it was almost time for him to go back home. These two theories would indicate that he ran away from his debt or even had something worse planned in order to escape his mounting problems. His family and friends, however, spoke out against this theory after the media peddled this as a possible motive. Sure, he did play poker, but didn't accumulate debt large enough to skip town over it. And even if he was scared to come home and tell his family about being fired, then he could have easily come back home on Monday while everyone was at work to pick up his credit card, his ID, etc. At least this is what his mother is saying. The only thing that his mother didn't completely dismiss was the theory that Zac possibly experimenting with drugs, maybe even the night before his disappearance. But she also says that he would never have taken such hard drugs as his father, whose drugs of choice was heroin. But the lines are blurry when it comes to defining hard drugs, because what are hard drugs and what aren't? Every individual may react differently to each type of drug. Maybe he really freaked out due to the drug-induced psychosis. Maybe it was just a big coincidence that it developed immediately after the first use instead of regular use. And maybe his mental episode was as it's hide in the car, which is why he was suffering a panic attack and just wanted to get away. Maybe he even attempted to make his way home on foot, but got lost, because it's easy to get confused when you are in this type of state. So he either wandered off into nature or got lost in the man-made stone quarry. There were some unconfirmed sightings all over Australia, but the police stated that it was unlikely that he would be able to take the train without being noticed. His friends are lying. The second theory, which I find a bit more likely, is that Zac's friends are lying. They were the only ones who were there during the incident and observed everything, and that's exactly what they told the police and his family. In the beginning, they cooperated and were trying to be helpful, but over time they distanced themselves from the case until they finally completely stopped all communication and even no longer have any contact with the family or other friends. During the interviews of Zac's friends, it turned out that their stories didn't match. Each of them provided different details and left out important information that on the other hand was mentioned by the others. Also, doesn't it sound completely bizarre and unrealistic that he would just jump out of the car and disappear into thin air? Why didn't anyone pursue him? After all, they said that he was already acting strange. The car that they were traveling in was a two-door car, and Zac was riding in the back, which would have meant that somebody else was sitting in the passenger seat. That person would have needed to get out in order to let him out of the car. This takes time, and it also kind of works against the theory that he just fled from the car. Even though there's no concrete proof, I still feel like this is most likely what happened, though my decision is based on a gut feeling. But in my opinion, anything else doesn't really make sense. I personally find the fact that the car was a two-seater extremely important. It shows the case in a different light. This story is sinister, way sinister, as you may have realized in the beginning. And that's it with today's video. What do you think? Do you think that the friends have something to do with the incident? Or did he really disappear because he was in debt, or because he couldn't deal with the stress of telling his family that he lost his job? If you liked this video, then please leave it a like, a comment or subscribe. This would help me out tremendously. Thank you so much in advance. Thank you for watching, good night and see you next time.